Okay, so back to your film. So wait a minute. So the hospital is still doing the same. So the guys, the two whistleblowers whom you profile in your documentary, they get away with exposing these horrible, dark, destructive practices, and yet that exposure and your film hasn't changed anything?
Not yet.
That so sucks.
Well,
I thought this was a good news show.
well, we're at the I didn't want to burst your bubble when we started talking, but I wasn't sure what to say.
Huh.
There may be good news down the road. There may be post-reform.
Give us a glimmer of hope.
Okay. There are a lot of nonprofit organizations. We're working with some of them for an outreach campaign. You can go to our website, donoharmdoc.com, to learn about them. Community Catalyst is one of them. They're an incredible organization that looks at all these issues. And what they've been saying is that post-healthcare reform is looking at insurance and coverage. Post-healthcare reform, they're going to start focusing on how healthcare services are actually delivered and the money that goes through that system and how bankruptcy and medical costs are connected. And that connection hasn't been focused on because people have been talking about insurance and coverage.
Right.
But that doesn't solve the problem of medical bankruptcy. So we're hoping that in the next few months, after these bills pass or are worked through in some hopefully reasonable way, knock on wood, then this will start becoming the next focus of all the healthcare advocates. And that's the interesting thing. We're waiting to see. And Phoebe Putney will hopefully become one of those hospitals that gets looked at again. And I should say that Senator Grassley, the Senate Finance Committee chair, at the time launched an investigation into 10 nonprofit hospitals, and Phoebe was one of them. I mean, there are many others that are pretty large hospitals. Columbia Presbyterian in New York, one of the biggest, most famous hospitals in the country. That was one of them.
And that committee can get any records it wants.
That's right.
Pretty much.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
okay, quickly to wrap up here, I'm just curious, how did you get involved in this project? How did you, what's your background and how did you get hooked up with these people? How did this project happen for you?
well, I'd always been interested in healthcare reform. I'd worked for Ralph Lauren when he established the Cancer Center for
Ralph Lauren, the Ralph Lauren?
the Ralph Lauren.
The polo guy?
The polo guy. But I worked on the charitable giving side. So we worked on establishing the Center for Cancer Prevention and Care in Harlem. Always thought these issues were really important. And I had a friend who was working on this stuff with Scruggs. She was working on some of his publicity, and she started telling me the stories, and she talked to me about Rayburg and Bagnato. I went down to Georgia, met them in the airport. They did a PowerPoint presentation and basically blew us all away. And so then we decided to do a film about them.
Wow. So this is not your full-time gig being a filmmaker?
It is.
It is?
I don't work for Ralph Lauren anymore.
No, you're not a Ralph Lauren person
No,
anymore.
not anymore.
But so did you have you weren't doing filmmaking with
No,
Ralph?
it was one of those life-changing life shifts. I moved to Chicago for my now husband, and
For my now husband.
it wasn't my husband at the time.
Where did you meet him?
Through his sister, I met him in New York.
But it has nothing to do with the film.
No.
It has more to do with Ralph.
No, nothing to do with that.
Okay.
You're obsessed with Ralph.
I am, just a little.
That's
I mean,
okay.
that's kind of, that's definitely an upper echelon kind of circle that you frequent.
No
Okay.
longer.
No longer. Okay.
But that was, when I moved to Chicago, I wanted to do something. I had always been a photographer, and I'd been really interested in film, but I had never done it, and I didn't know people here, so I wanted to do something more collaborative, and hooked up with the Kindling Group, which is the company. It's a nonprofit documentary film company that focuses on social issues here in Chicago. And I worked on a couple films with Danny Alpert, the executive producer there, and loved working there. And then he said to me one day, "You should do your own." And this idea came down the pike, and
That's fantastic.
he really supported me through this entire thing. It's a fantastic organization, and you can go to the Kindling Group's website, which is kindlinggroup.org.
Do they take interns?
Yes,
Do
they
they
take
really?
lots of interns,
Oh,
and they would
cool.
love help. So.
Cool. You have been listening to Rebecca Shanberg talk about her documentary, Do No Harm. And once again, you can see there's a screening.
You can see it on Wednesday, this coming
Evanston.
Wednesday, November 18th, in Evanston at the Block Museum, which is it's Northwestern University's Evanston campus, as part of the Real Time series.
Fantastic. And you have a website, once again?
Our website is www.donoharmdoc.com.
Fantastic. Rebecca Shanberg, thank you so much for coming and talking about your film. I
Thank
really enjoyed it.